also think there's also a lack of understanding what happened before you, right? Like, I think everybody thinks they're incredibly important. I almost told you this story before, but I'm gonna tell it to you now because it's just hysterical. So I think everybody has an inflated sense of self-worth and value. Here's a great example. We're not a big church family. I'm sure you're not shocked to hear this, but my wife has a rosary in our bedroom, in our closet, and my 4-year-old saw the rosary, and he saw a crucifix on the rosary. So a few days goes by, and my wife is trying to convince my son to go to the bathroom right before bed, and this is hysterical. And he goes, "I don't want to pee. I don't want to go pee." And my wife goes, "You have to pee before bed. You're going to pee every night before you go to bed until you die. You got to do it every night before you go to bed." And my wife is arguing with a 4-year-old, and you know how fun that can be. And literally my son's like, "What do you mean, I'm going to die?" She goes, "Yeah, you're going to die." He goes, "What does that mean?" He goes, well, she says, "There's a period in time where you weren't here, and there'll be a period in time when you're not here again. But every day between now and then, you're going to have to pee before bed." And he goes, "So when I die, I'm just going to go away?" And she goes, "Yes." He goes, "What about that guy on the sword?" He came back. My wife goes, "That's a very special case. He was kind of a messiah. He did go away. He did come back." And Max goes, "Maybe I'll come back." And my wife goes, "Yes, it's going to be you and Jesus Christ. Max Cava and Jesus Christ."
That's amazing. That's an amazing question.
So everybody is entitled. Everybody feels like they're special. Everybody feels like they're the chosen one. And I think everybody has a lack of empathy for what people went through before them. And you look at it and you're like, it was harder for me because we have black and white TVs and these kids have a cell phone. It's all basically the same stuff. Just what you wear is a little bit different. The camera is a little bit different, but that's about it. It's the same thing you're going through. And if you have a lack of empathy for each generation, you're never going to bridge that gap.
I love that you brought up World War II. So I often use this example with people. So my grandfather, who passed away at 99 years old, one of the toughest old cooch you'll ever meet, but he fought in World War II. So he left at a relatively young age in his teens and went out and joined the army and signed up for the paratroopers because it paid like an extra $100 a month. That's the only reason. And even though he was scared to death of heights, he did it because that was the way to make the most money. Went out, boot camp, went to the Philippines, jumped out of planes, got shot at doing this. One of his last assignments was hunting down Japanese officers who refused to believe that the war was over in the Philippines. So these Japanese officers would go stow away with a sword and a machine gun and a bunch of grenades in a cave and say, "Come and get me." And my grandpa, like all the Southern boys, were put into platoons that would go parachute in and go hunt Japanese during the day. So they would go out on patrols, and they used the Southern boys because they would go out with dogs, and Southern boys were good at hunting. So they would just go chase down Japanese and get shot at. And sometimes the Japanese person they were after would blow themselves up and take a few of the boys with them. Perilous, right? Like just stories you hear, you're like, whoa, way tougher than guys like me and Frankie, right? But the best part of the story is his dad thought he was incredibly soft. His dad was like, "You are shirking responsibility. You're leaving the farm in Alabama to go off and parade around the world and jet set." Just pretty much said, your generation has no idea about honor. So the greatest generation, when we look back on it, the ones that fought in World War II, were thought of by the generation before them as soft because they didn't have to work on a farm during the Great Depression. They didn't have to go through the Dust Bowl. They didn't know what it was like to feed their family.
The Roaring 20s, they were all kids. Everyone was partying.
That generation was incredibly soft. And it's like, I look at it and I'm like, that generation was hard as hell. Like they built this country. They made it what it was. But it just goes to show that This is just a rite of passage. So